What's up, people? Good morning. Time for another look ahead into free agency, and this time we're going to go over the restricted free agents. Yesterday we went over the exclusive rights free agents, now we're doing restricted. So let's do a quick explanation of what a restricted free agent is. They are players who have exactly 3 accrued seasons in the NFL. Little more complicated here. Exclusive rights free agents are kind of binary, right? Either you want them and you get to keep them, or you don't want them and you let them go. Restricted, there is a little more room for nuance here. You have to place a value on how much you want to keep that player, and then you have to give them that value in order to make sure you keep them, or make sure you're compensated if you don't get to keep them. So, let's go over the rules here. Restricted free agency. A restricted free agent is likely to stay with their current team if their current team values them. However, there has to be some synergy between how the team values that player and how the rest of the league values that player. If there isn't, then another team is likely to get that player. So here's what I mean. When an NFL team has a restricted free agent, they can extend to them one of 4 offers, really. 4 offers. The first offer is no offer, not extending them an offer at all. If they don't extend them an offer, the player becomes an unrestricted free agent and can sign with any team, same as any free agent. And then there are 3 options beyond that. There is the right of first refusal tender, second round tender, and first round tender. All those tenders are 1-year deals set at values that are dictated by the CBA and basically determine compensation if another team tries to sign that player away by offering them a bigger deal than the RFA tender. So, this year, right of first refusal, $2.629 million. So basically $2.6 million, call it. 1 year, $2.6 million. If another team comes in and makes a bigger offer on a player that has been extended the right of first refusal, the team that gave them that tender has the right to match the offer and deny that player his ability to go to another team. Or they can let the player go to the team that offered him more, but they're going to get potentially some draft capital back. How much? Well, it depends on where the player was drafted. For instance, there are supposedly going to be 5 Seahawks this year who are restricted free agents. I say supposedly because there's conflicting information on the internet. One of them is Mike Jackson, the cornerback. Another is Ryan Neal, the safety, defensive back. So Mike Jackson was drafted in the 5th round a few years ago, I think by the Falcons. 5th rounder. Therefore, if we gave a right of first refusal tender to Mike Jackson, that would be a 1-year, $2.63 million contract, basically. If another team comes in and is like, okay, we're going to offer Mike Jackson 1 year, $3 million, then the Seahawks would either match that deal to keep Mike Jackson, and if they do that, then the player and the other team that is trying to sign him has no choice in the matter. The team can only then make a bigger offer, or they can say, okay, Mike, you're gone. You're out of here. Go play for Team X that offered you more money. But Team X is going to give us a 5th round pick, because a 5th round pick is what you were when you came into the league. So hypothetically, we give right of first refusal tender on Mike Jackson, 1 year, 2.63. Another team comes in, like let's say the Dolphins come in and they're like, okay, 1 year, $3 million. We can either say we're going to match that and keep Mike Jackson here, or we can say, okay, Mike, you're going to the Dolphins, but the Dolphins are going to give us a 5th round pick. If the exact same scenario plays out with another player, like say Ryan Neal, who was undrafted, then it's exactly the same, except we don't get any picks because the player was undrafted when he came into the league. So the compensation on the right of first refusal tender is equivalent to the player's original draft round. So most RFAs, in my experience, were guys who were undrafted, but occasionally they are guys who were drafted, like Mike Jackson. So that's something to be mindful of as we move forward. Now, the second round tender is exactly the same, except it's for a bigger amount, about 4.31. So it's significantly higher than the right of first refusal. Plays out exactly the same, except if a team outbids you. Like, let's say we put the second round tender on Mike Jackson, and a team comes out and says, okay, we want to offer him 1 year, $4.5 million. We can either match it, or we can let him go and get a second round pick back in return. So that's a pretty decent chunk of compensation you could get back if somebody really wants that player. And first rounder, same thing, except it's a first rounder. So hopefully everyone's on board with that. But basically, when you have a player that is a restricted free agent, either you're going to get to keep them if you want them, or you're going to make somebody else pay to earn the right to take them away from you. Unlike unrestricted, where you could just lose the player and that's that. You might not have any say in it. The player may not want to come back. A team may make an offer so big you can't match it. Not necessarily the case with the restricted. You are at least making sure you are getting compensated. So now that we know what a restricted free agent is, who are the Seahawks restricted free agents? Depends on who you ask. Field Goals did this article a couple weeks ago, and they have 5 guys who are listed as restricted. Mike Jackson, Ryan Neal, Tanner Muse, Penny Hart, and Tony Jones. But Spotrac only has 2, Penny Hart and Tanner Muse. And ironically, it would probably be Mike Jackson and Ryan Neal who are the most interesting. So who to believe? Who knows? Who knows? Again, in my experience, Spotrac sometimes doesn't update their free agent pages for players that are considered lower level, and sometimes they're just behind. However, it should be noted, they actually have Ryan Neal listed explicitly as a UFA. So that's a little different. Basically, what I'm trying to say is, be prepared either way. Brady Henderson has said he's restricted. Other people have said he's unrestricted. I don't know. We're gonna kind of have to find out when this free agency starts. But let's work with this list, and just know that if any of these guys are not actually restricted, then that obviously changes things massively. Okay, so here would be my evaluation of it. Tony Jones, either way, he was a guy we signed in the middle of the season because we ran out of running backs. I didn't see anything from him that jumped off the page. He can go be an unrestricted free agent as far as I'm concerned. If we're going to tender him for anything, it would probably be right of first refusal, but even that, like $2.63 million for a running back that didn't really flash at all, no thank you. So I think Tony Jones, just don't even give him a tender. Penny Hart, I kind of feel the same way about. I know the team likes him, but I don't see any reason why he would be a hot commodity out there. I would just not extend him the tender, and then I would maybe say, all right, if you're still there after final cuts, you can hop on our practice squad, and you can continue to be our practice squad receiver. But I'm not looking to extend him any kind of a tender. I don't think you need to. I don't see how Penny Hart does $2.3 million worth of stuff for the active roster. So, yeah, those first 2 guys, Penny Hart, Tony Jones, I don't think there needs to be any kind of a tender put on them. These top 3 guys, however, more interesting. Tanner Muse. Tanner Muse. So, here's the way I see it. Tanner Muse played pretty well at linebacker the last few games of the year after Jordan Brooks got hurt. He could play safety, and if nothing else, he's a good special teamer, and he's young, and he was drafted relatively high. I believe he was a 3rd-round pick. So you slap right of first refusal on him. 1 year, $2.63 million for, at the very least, a backup linebacker who can also play some safety, who can also play some special teams. If anybody wants him so badly they're willing to offer him like 1 year, $3 million, then they have to send you a 3rd rounder. I will take a 3rd round pick for Tanner Muse. Hell yeah. So sign me up for that. In fact, just pencil that in right now. Tanner Muse, right of first refusal, $2.63 million. Anybody who wants him, 3rd round pick is the asking price. Yeah, right, like anybody's going to do that when this guy got cut by the Raiders just like a year ago. So, yeah, right of first refusal for Tanner. Ryan Neal. This is an interesting one because Ryan Neal was one of our best players this year, and the league is starting to take note. If Ryan Neal is truly restricted, and there's a lot of conflicting information out there, if he's restricted, then I am going to definitely make it difficult for a team to take him away from me. I am probably putting at least a second-round tender on Ryan Neal. I think that Ryan Neal's clearly worth $4.31 million. He's at the very least a very good backup strong safety to Jamal Adams, which we need, whether we want to admit it or not. He can also contribute on special teams. He's also able of playing some cornerback, especially dime cornerback. So one way or the other, you are probably getting your money's worth out of a one-year $4.31 million tender to Ryan Neal. Remember, if you do right of first refusal on Ryan Neal, there's no draft pick compensation, so I don't think that's going to hold. What needs to hold is the second round pick ask, which I don't believe anybody's going to bite on Ryan Neal for. So I am putting that second round tender on Ryan Neal. And then finally we have Mike Jackson. I kind of feel the same way. Mike Jackson was a pretty good starting cornerback for the Seahawks throughout basically all of 2022. Not a good tackler, but really good in coverage. I think if you put right of first refusal on him, I think there's a team out there that would be happy to give him $3 million and give up a 5th round pick. But if you put that second round tender on him, I believe you are still getting your money's worth. Mike Jackson, the way he played last year, clearly worth $4.31 million. And I don't think anybody's going to give up a second rounder for him. And if they do, they can have him at that point. Like, I like Mike Jackson, but not more than a second round pick. And that's what I got. All right. That's the video. See you guys later. We're going to start on our unrestricted free agents next. But those are my thoughts on the restricted free agents for the Seahawks going into this offseason.